Hello, I'm Sarah. This is Talk About Hearts, and this is my week of reading wrap-up where I talk about the books that I read this week, what I'm currently reading, and then potentially could read next week based on my mood. Had a very good week. I'm trying to get a different rhythm going, so I don't have as many to talk about in terms of what I completed, but I have a lot that I'm currently reading. So let's talk about it, and I'll kind of explain where we are. So the first book that I finished is Death in the East, and this is number 4 of the Captain Sam Wyndham series by Abir Mukherjee. This is a series about a man from Scotland Yard who's a Scotsman who comes to Calcutta, colonial Calcutta, in the 1920s, and he is there as things are starting to change and colonialism is starting to break apart at the seams, and Indians are starting to recognize their need and getting some political gains in terms of their freedom. So we know that India is going to move toward independence at the behest of Mahatma Gandhi, who appears throughout the series. And some of the protests, some of the things that they're doing to draw attention to what's going on appears. And I think that that's super, super interesting. So it's a really interesting time, interesting place. And Sam is not taking the British colonial stance per se, even though he's part of that culture. As a Scotsman who worked at Scotland Yard, he already has his own problems with Britain. So he's an interesting character to follow through because he's already dissatisfied and so therefore offers an interesting perspective. Sam is paired up with a Sergeant Surendreth. And Surendreth is a gentleman who is born of a very distinguished family, very important family, and he's renounced that to come to work for the police. And his family does not understand because they want independence. And his thought is that he also wants independence, but how better to understand how to govern after independence than by being a part of the government at this moment in time. So he's an interesting character. And Sam immediately recognizes how underutilized and undervalued Surendreth is, and he forms a friendship with them that is true and lasting in a way that he doesn't with the other British people who are living in Calcutta at the time. We know in the earlier parts of the series that Sam has an addiction to opium. This is something that he developed after the Great War and deals with as part of his PTSD. But now people know about it, and it's time he's got to clean up his act. And so he's going to go to an ashram and actually detox. Oh, the sun's coming in. Happy Friday. So he's going to go and detox at this ashram. And this creates an interesting dynamic in the story because he and Surendreth have been kind of solving these cases and they live together. So they've been kind of commingled throughout the entire series. Now all of a sudden there's this space and distance. Surendreth is going to take some time off as well, and he goes back to his family while we have Sam going up north into Assam country, where they make the tea to actually finally kick heroin and opium. While he's en route, he has to start to detox, and so he has less in his body, and it's making him think strange thoughts. It's making him react in strange ways. And as he's at the train station, he thinks he sees in the crowd a face he should not see. This is someone that he thought was dead from his past when he lived in London. But he can't tell if he is hallucinating because of the withdrawals or if this is true. He goes to the ashram and he meets all sorts of people there and starts the process. But a murder happens. One of the people who is there to detox appears dead, shows up dead, and he is coming out of his detox, and so he is able, in mentally a little bit more able to take on solving the case. This was such a great addition to the series, not only because of, just a good story here, but we were also able to go deeper with Sam's character. Because of this person that he thinks he sees and then starting to solve this crime, we get retrospectives into his life in London and how he became a police officer and how he kind of rose through the ranks and with one of his very first cases that still bothers him. And it brings him to some moral conclusions of what his actions should be that I think if we hadn't had that backstory would not have made as much sense. So again, I'm continually impressed with this series, and I have the arc to the next one, so I'm going to be reading that very soon. So yay on that. Next up, I read For Victober. I recommend jumping into one of these little small short stories. This is from the Penguin Little Black Classic series. They did, I think, 101. I've got like a big box of all of them. And this is The Old Nurse's Story. There's also another one in here. The other story is called Curious If True. I would say that the first story, The Old Nurse's Story, is your traditional Victorian Gothic ghost story. So we have a young child and a nurse who's there to protect and take care of her. We have death of parents, and therefore the child needs to be sent off to live with the charges. And these are old aunts that are living in the spookiest of mansions, and they're odd and kind of creepy and a little strange. A whole wing of this mansion is not being leveraged or used in any way. It's been boarded up. And there's a weird organ that makes noises, even though it looks like it's not working and not functioning. And just everything you would want with Elizabeth Gaskell's style and her ability to just craft an amazing story. So that was fantastic. I would say the second one is a little less exciting for me. It's called Curious If True. And this, I think, is more of a fantasy story. Yes, it has a little Gothic elements to it, but it's a gentleman finds himself lost and stumbles upon a mansion that a party's going on. So I'll leave that because these are very, very short, so I don't want to give too much away. But what a great addition. What a great way to kind of kick off Victober in this spirit. Then, how do I want to talk about this? This is a gorgeous, gorgeous book. This is The Master by Colm Toíbín. So this is the story of Henry James, as imagined by Colm Toíbín. And I recognize that I don't know enough about Henry James to really do this justice. So I'm not sure if you've ever had the experience of reading something where you are confronted with how little you know. That's what this book did to me. There are a lot of, this is about his inner life, his inner thoughts, his emotions. And it's kind of like a life story, but it's told in vignettes and little chapters of him recollecting, or sometimes we go back into his past, or we're here in his present day. So it has multiple timelines that kind of run. But a lot of it is about how he feels and how he thinks, which is interesting, right? It's really interesting. And Colm Toíbín can write. My challenge is that I mentioned that I don't know enough about his work to really see the relevance of what was being signposted to me. Because this is a very quiet, calm, almost monotone book, right? There's no real arc to the story. It's a deep character study. But if you don't really know some of the things that you are feeling like you should, based on the way it's written, it left me a little cold. It's, as I said, there's no arc, so you're just with this one character. He was interesting, but I kept feeling like I was missing, like I should have known something because of the way it was being written, the way I said signposting and an indication that, oh, this maybe is a character, is the real life inspiration for a character for another book. And because I don't have enough of a grasp of his work, I just didn't get those key moments. Beautifully written. I think I gave it 3 stars because I'm glad that I read it. And ironically, my Goodreads says I read it before, and I have absolutely no memory of that. So that's how quiet and subtle and calming this book is. So yeah, I gave it the exact same rating, even though I don't really remember reading it before. I got this out because I'm about to read The Magician, which is his latest about Thomas Mann. So what I think I'm going to do in preparation for that, that's a digital arc off NetGalley. In preparation of that, I think I'm going to do a little bit more research on Thomas Mann, even though I read Death in Venice many, many years ago and thought it was remarkable. I want to have a little bit more grounding. I think that's where I kind of lost my foothold with this one. Okay, so that's what I read. So let's talk about what I'm currently reading. I'm going to go out of order and say, first off, let's talk about David Copperfield. So I'm reading this with Jennifer, and she is a frequent commenter as well as really great on Instagram. And we're doing a buddy read of this. And this is just so charming and quaint. Now, I usually do not like child narrators, but this is an adult talking about his childhood. And so we get the innocence and the gullibility and the open-heartedness of this character. I mean, yes, Dickens does these polished kind of characters that are a little tropey, not as deep character studies as some other things, but he packs a lot in. We've already met so many people. We've had so many adventures with little David Copperfield, and I'm enjoying it tremendously. And Jennifer and I had a really great check-in already, so can't wait to read more of this. But while we were talking about this, she told me that she is way faster at Proust than I have been. And I know she started after Leo and I had started. And so I was asking her, I was like, what's your trick? This is, because I've been holding this up for ages. This is Marcel Proust, In Search of Lost Time, Volume 3, The Guermantes Way, translated by Mark Treharne. And I realized that maybe my approach is wrong. I know, shocking, right? I've been treating this like Godiva chocolate. I've been treating this like a savory treat that I want to luxuriate with and enjoy. And she said that her trick is to actually just read it, just as fast as you can, just go for it. Don't treat it like it's precious or fragile or something, because there's just a lot of stuff here, but there's a lot of, filler's the wrong word. But the consequential, you'll remember the scenes and the things that matter because of the way it's written. And so I think I'm going to take that advice and not try to be so precious and put this on high, but instead try to knock it out. Wish me luck. Okay, and then Orlando by Virginia Woolf. So we're still reading this. We've had a little bit of a delay. I'm so happy for Elizabeth. Elizabeth is in Norway, and they're starting to open up. And so I remember when California started to open up, all of a sudden everything, your life gets a little crazy. You start to get out more and have to do things, and it's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. So we're gonna check in on this a little bit later, but we both need to finish this. But no hurry. Virginia Woolf is still going to be there. Orlando will still be there. I'm also reading Unsettled Ground. I need to finish that today because I'm meeting with my book club tomorrow. That's by Claire Fuller, and it's very, very interesting. So curious to see where it's going to go. And then I'm doing a Trollope, because what is Victober without an Anthony Trollope? I'm doing Can You Forgive Her? And I'm here to tell you, it is like a gorgeous masterpiece series. I just sink into it. It's all the drama of people who've done things that they need to be forgiven for. And will they get forgiven? Shouldn't they be forgiven? What's the cost of that? I'm enjoying it very much. I like the characters, and yeah, there's just something really, for me, there's something really cozy in reading Trollope for Victober. Just because I don't know, I don't know what it is. It's very quiet, it's very staid, it's very linear. Like there's not a lot of plot twists and wildness, but there's a lot of characters that you kind of follow through, and the plot is well done. But it's cozy and it's quiet and it's slow. It's a slow pull out of the story. So I'm curious to see, what happens with all of the many characters in this Trollope book. And this is the first, I think, of the Palliser series. So maybe I will be continuing on with that. So that's, and then I'm also doing 2 classes, or maybe study. That's the best way to say it. Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. I'm doing this with the San Francisco Zen Center in an actual class. So continuing with that. And then continuing with The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron with a few people from the bookish community. So that's been exciting. So I hope you have a fantastic weekend ahead. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, we're still in this pandemic. If you can get vaccinated, please do so. If you're out in public, wear a mask, maintain safe social distance, wash your hands, and don't touch your face. Thank you, and we'll talk to you later.